Today we're going to do something just for a little bit of fun. I had a suggestion to make a tier list of what I thought of the Balance Council from the first one before the second one comes out, of what I thought of the changes after playing the game for the past 2 weeks with the changes in effect, basically. And I thought that'd be pretty fun, so we're going to do it. Let me know if you guys like these random tier list videos. Don't do too many of them, but if you guys like this, I might do it for each patch after we play through with the community changes. But before we get into it, what do I think a good balance change is? I think a good balance change is one that lets different cards and different decks be viable without destroying something completely. Right? That's kind of what I think. So as far as our tiers, top tier, excellent change. Obviously, everything I ever voted for will be in this category. No, I'm just kidding. I can be wrong after playing patches, after playing cards and stuff. But yeah, these are just the ones I thought turned out the best after playing the game. Good changes, like they were good. Maybe not the most impactful thing, but still a good change overall. Neutral changes either didn't change too much, or it changed something that wasn't impactful. Questionable changes are ones I'm not certain should have been passed, but they didn't really ruin anything. So, yeah, that's for that one. And bad changes, like if you made the card if you nerf a card from being playable to unplayable completely, it's going in here because that's not good. I think the card should be playable. Like all cards should be playable, in my opinion. But yeah, those are the tiers. And it'd also be fun to see because I know there's been a lot of people complaining about the Balance Council. Now I'm curious to see where we end up on this list because I think we'll actually have, in my opinion, a lot of good changes. But let's just take a look and see what we're going with. I uploaded all these guys. Oh, before we get into it, each patch I export all of the card images, which is where I got the images from. But since the Community Balance Council was in the middle of a patch, I don't have the updated versions of the cards. So sorry about that. This is the old pictures. But yeah, I export them all at the start of the patch, so I don't have them for this patch. But I'll tell you the changes, and it's still a card picture, so it should be fine. Going into it, first change is Admiral Rompley. He did get that nerf to the provisions. We're going to go between good and neutral on this one. I think Admiral Rompley was fine. I think he was fine. And the thing is, status Nilfgaard. I've seen a few, actually, status Nilfgaards. But I don't really know if he needed to change. It didn't seem like it changed very much to nerf him. But he's going in neutral. I'm neutral on it. I could be persuaded that he could have used the nerf. Next up, we have the Alba Arma Cavalry going from 5 to 4 power. Yeah, I don't like that one. It's a 5 provision lock. What are the other locks in the game? Like, the Gregory of Vol is a 6 for 6. So this is kind of on curve for that. Aguara is a 7 for 8, but that one has the flexibility of doing the unlock, so that's fine. And then you have Van Morlem Hunter, which is a 3 for 4 lock, but also has the flexibility of the bleeding. Nerfing this to 4 power I don't think made sense. I think the Slave Driver was the problem. And after playing the patch and trying to use this card, it doesn't even answer on tempo a lot of the engines anymore, which kind of defeats its entire purpose. So I don't like that. Amphibious Assault. I was kind of skeptical of this one, and it turns out it doesn't matter because everything's in Northern Realms is either Shoop or, well, I guess even Shoop doesn't play this. Everything in Northern Realms is a Muta Generator. So I'm not too sure about this one. So I'm gonna go between. I don't know. You don't see it. It's 13 provisions now. In case I didn't mention the change. We'll just go neutral. I'm neutral on it. When the first patch first came out, I was in the questionable category. But yeah, it seems fine, but you can't tell too much because everything's Golden Necker. We've got Angus. I'm putting that one in questionable. Sure, it's hard to answer him when he's a 7. He's got 12 power or 12 provisions. He's a 7. It's hard to answer him before they can remove him. So I can see that. But was Waylays really that good of a deck? It was one of the better Scoia'tael decks, but I don't think it was that strong. But okay. Yeah, this one's going to go questionable for me. Next up, we have Artorias Vigo. It's between these two, honestly, here. We'll go neutral. I was debating between neutral and questionable. He got a power buff to 3 power. He was already played, which is why I was skeptical of this one. But giving him a power doesn't really seem to have done anything, but that might just be because all of the Nilfgaard stuff got nerfed, so we don't know. But for now, I'll be neutral. Sure, he can have a power, I guess. He was already a good card, so I'm not too sure. But since we haven't seen him played, I don't really know. Next up, Bare Knuckle Brawler. This is a good change. Going from 4 to 5 on the Bare Knuckle Brawler on the provisions means you can't make it off of the Tidecloak card. What's it called? The one where he's pulling the crate out of the water. You know what card I'm talking about. You can't make it because it's not a 4-person fee card anymore. And it was an extremely good control engine that, well, it gets control spender. It's not really an engine. That at 5 provisions, it seems a lot more fair. Your opponent's not spamming out a whole bunch of them if you kill them. Now, if you kill them, it kind of matters, so they can't keep doing it. And overall, it was a pretty good change. I like this one. Next up, Battle Stations, going from 11 to 12 provisions. Top tier change. Card was way too strong, 11 provisions. The fact that the rest of Nilfgaard got nerfed into Oblivion, which we'll get to, doesn't really affect that. This, I think, was a good change. A very good change. It was way too expensive for what it did. Or way too cheap, I mean. And at 12, it seems a lot more fair. Next up, Black Rayleigh going 5 to 6 power. Good change. She's still not quite viable, in my opinion at least, but she's more viable, and that's a good start. I kind of think all these engine cards that do conditional 2 damage and do 1 each turn should be viable, and all around the same level, so I think that's a good place for her. I like the change, maybe not making her viable, but it's good enough that it's definitely in the right direction, and I like it. Next up, we have Brothans. He's similar to Artorias Vigo, where he was already a good card and got a buff. I haven't seen him too much just because Assimilate doesn't seem to be that popular. Usually play Assimilate with Tactics, and Tactics getting so many nerfs, which we'll get into, kind of means you haven't seen him much. I did try out both Brothans and Artorias Vigo myself, trying to play Assimilate, and the +1 power wasn't that noticeable. The only thing it does is it makes it harder to remove it with a control card, so they don't get more points off your Assimilate engines. The Brothans one's a little more impactful to me than the Artorias Vigo, but I think they're pretty similar. He was already a good card, so I wasn't sure he needed it, but it doesn't seem to have changed much. And I want to mention here, I'm not ranking these within the tiers, because that would be way too much effort, and I'll just mention maybe if I think it's at the top or bottom, otherwise they're kind of all similar. Next up, Cleaver's Muscle got an extra power, top tier change. Made Cleaver Crimes viable. Cleaver Crimes is a fun deck. We'll probably do a video on that at some point. Also helped out the Nilfgaardian Justice, which is possibly in that deck, and also in Scoia'tael, which is nice. And it's just a good change. Even out as a 6 for 4, the really big change to this is for Cleaver. It's made Cleaver such a better card. And Cleaver spending 4 coins to get a 5 provision guy with a shield felt really bad. But now that you're getting 6, it's essentially the same ratio as Sea Jackal, except it spreads it out among bodies, which is really good, and I think I like having Cleaver be viable with this, which is the biggest change to him. It's just basically a Cleaver change, but also helps Justice, and since it helps multiple decks with multiple cards, it has to be top tier for me. Next up, Crow Mother from 4 to 5, top tier change. Really like that one. It gives you more carryover in a carryover-focused deck. It makes Crow Mother not die to Northern Wind, which is actually really important most of the time. So quite like that change. And Druids with a deck was a deck that kind of needed buffs, so this is a good one. In Drago Larva, 6 provisions to 5 was a good change. Helps at C play. It got nerfed to 6 way back when it was the best 5 provision card in the game, which made sense. But the game has power crept it a little bit, and you didn't see it play outside of maybe Haunted Manor decks, which I played a bit of, and it's much better at 5 provisions there because it lets you flex into stuff. So good change overall. Not that impactful because I haven't seen it too much, but I think it's a good change. Next up, Enslave lost a provision. Enslave is a very strong leader, so I do think we'll put that in good. Enslave's a very strong leader ability, and I think the leader abilities are generally balanced to be in a vacuum, which one is the best, regardless of everything else. And in a vacuum, it's a very strong leader ability. It does have deck building limitations, but Seize is extremely strong, and I can see it losing a provision. In general though, this doesn't really apply to, I'm not talking about Enslave in regards to all the other changes, just saying overall the Enslave change probably warranted, but everything combined, Nilfgaard got hammered. But next up, Eternal Eclipse Deacon. That's a bad change. Why are we nerfing this? Eternal Eclipse needed a Fawn, and without a Fawn, it's just bad. You can't protect or trigger your scenario. We're just beating it to death for no reason. I'm not sure why this got nerfed to 4 power, but yeah, to me, this is a bad change. We're just nerfing a bad deck even more. So, I don't know. I guess the thing is it puts it at 4 power in range of like every single bomb and control card under the sun, so you can stop them from infusing the Afon in their deck, which might have been a viable thing if Afon didn't get reworked. Like, I could see this being a substitution for the Afon rework, but now it doesn't make sense. Next up, Philandreville. Got that provision decrease. Haven't seen him, but I think it's a good change. I want to see Philandreville be used, and this just makes sense to me. Didn't change too much. He still takes setup. If he gained a power, it'd be weird, because it'd be harder to orient him. So, like, he needs like a +2 power or the provision. The provision makes sense. I think it's pretty good. Next up, we have Gezeros. Gained a power. Harder to kill now, which makes a lot of sense. We'll put that in good. I don't know why. I'm just inclined to stick the leader at the end. I think it's more aesthetically pleasing. But yeah, Gezeros. Overall, pretty good change to Gezeros. I like it. Seems a bit more viable now. Still haven't seen him played, which is why it's not going higher, but yeah, I think this was good. Next up, Imperial Formation was a good leader ability. Did it deserve a point nerf? Yeah, a provision nerf? Yeah, I think it did. Probably a good change overall there. Not much to say about that one. It's a really good leader ability. It armors, protects your engines, gives you points. Pretty good. Next up, Imperial Marine, losing a power from 4 to 3. That is a top tier change. Imperial Marine was incredibly oppressive, and the thing is, when it gained that 2 power right away after you played Yonkel Wait, you just couldn't kill it because it was at 6 and it was out of range of most of your control. So, excellent way to nerf the card. Much better making 6 revisions, in my opinion. Next up, we have the Ixora. Nerfed again. Where are we going to put this one? So she went from 8 to 7 power. I think we'll stick her there. I think with the Vice nerf to Ixora, I think she was in a fine spot. But again, if you think Ixora was too strong, you could argue me down to saying at 7 was a fair nerf. Season 8 for 8 tempo slam is pretty decent. But yeah, you could argue me either way on this one. Kind of neutral on it. Next up, we have the Jackpot gaining a provision. I like that. I think that's good. Jackpot not really seeing any play, and giving it provision help it out is kind of nice. I still don't see it seeing any play. It might need another provision. It might need something else, some of its cards, but overall I think that was a pretty good change. Next up, Yonkel Wait from 8 to 7 power. It's gonna be a top tier change. When I voted for the ones, I voted for 11 provisions, but you guys convinced me successfully after that it should be 7 power instead of 11 provisions. Good job on that. I can change my mind when you guys give me good arguments. Oh, you guys have good arguments, though. So yeah, I think this is an excellent top tier change. It's way, way too good. Well, it was way, way too good for what it did, which is the best consistency card in the entire game. You play it and you see every good card in your deck every single time. So making a little less tempo on that play maybe lets you help pressure that round 1 so you can bleed those good cards out round 2, counterplay it. Good change there. Headmoney Revenant, another top tier change. Fantastic change. It got an extra power. Means it's less vulnerable to stuff. Means it's easier to keep alive. Means every time you spawn one, it's worth another point. Very good. I've tried it a few times. We haven't gone an all-in Revenant deck yet, so we can't say for certain how good it is in that. But I have tried it a few times, and it's much better. Like, you can, if you just get this thing to live and get its order off once, it's, what, 7 for 4 it did a damage? Or 8 for 4 it did a damage. It's quite nice. Its order is actually kind of hard to get off a lot of the time, and the opponent will remove it. So I think it's fair, and it's a really good change, because it helps out stuff like Drog, helps out Forbidden Magic, and helps out Ada and Curse stuff. Just really like this one. We played with it too, and it was fun. Next up, Kara Trollded from 10 to 11. It's probably good, but like I said, there's a couple things to caveat. There's like, for all the Skellige ones, unless it's a Golden Necker card, it's hard to say because you don't really see it played, unless it's spawned off Magic Compass. And the same for Northern Realms. If it's not like a Mutagenerator Synergy card, it's kind of hard to say. But yeah, we'll put it there. I think it's probably good. This was extremely strong at 10. The double clash with Doom Voyager, I think, puts it in needing the 11th provision. Next up, we have Golden Compass. Golden Compass because it goes in Golden Necker decks, but it's actually called Magic Compass. That is a bad change in my opinion. Magic Compass just became going to 9, put in Necker. Like, I literally think 95% of my games against Skellige are just Compass Necker. It's so dominant that it kind of killed every other Skellige deck in the game, except maybe Raids, but I don't even see that anymore. So, Because just because the Compass Necker has so much control, the Raid's control isn't as important. So yeah, I don't like the change. I'll caveat this one. Magic Compass is a very fun card to use. It lets you do a lot of cool stuff. But being in Golden Necker just seems too strong, and it overpowered everything else in the faction. So I don't think it was good, but I can see why people think it is good. And I don't hate the change. Like, it was fun to use. It just seems like after we tested it out once again that it's too strong. But it was fun. Maybe that makes it go questionable. I don't know. But it just dominates the entire faction. So we'll leave it here. Mutagenerator getting nerfed from 6 to 7 provisions. Good change. Good change. It's not top tier because it's not I don't think it's impactful enough to be in top tier, because it just doesn't do anything. You still play it, and you lost a provision in your deck that was made up for completely by something else we'll get to later. So it didn't actually have any effect because of that, for the most part. But yeah, it was a good change. Then we have Nausicaa Sergeant. We're gonna go questionable. Nausicaa Sergeant. It's between questionable and bad. The thing is, it's not like these guys where they're awful, or in one case, way too strong. Nausicaa Sergeant, it's a 9 for 6 now on a deploy. The problem with Nausicaa Sergeant is in combination with Slave Driver. Is where I'm debating between questionable and bad. Because if Slave Driver makes a Nausicaa Sergeant, it's a 10 value Slave Driver. Should Nausicaa Sergeant, Nausicaa Sergeant, you can't play round 1, and you have to play it round 2, but it has assimilate synergy. So this is on the low end of questionable. It's between questionable and bad for me, but we'll put it here just because you can still play Nausicaa Sergeant. It has uses, but it's just not good enough really to be played in your deck over other things anymore. So it's kind of questionable for me. Maybe it's in bad. The thing with Nausicaa is it's so dependent on the Slave Driver interaction that it's between these two. I'm just going to leave it in questionable for now. Nithral getting a buff goes right alongside Black Rayla. Very same thing. Very similar card. Pretty much same reasoning. Yeah, not much there. Novigrad went from 12 provisions. Oh, must be the older one. It was 12 versions and it went to 11. I'm neutral. I don't think Novigrad needed a buff. Novigrad is an amazing card. If you draw Novigrad round 1, you just are so happy because you just play out that round 1 and that round 2, and it gets you like 10 or 12 coins over time, plus the 3, plus you have the carryover of the gang card. Yeah, I mean, Novigrad's a really useful and really good card. So, as a Collusion enjoyer, it was nice to see it getting buffed. I don't think it deserved it necessarily, but I'm neutral on it because Syndicate hasn't seemed that oppressive, so I guess we can leave it here. Next up, we have Open Sesame. It's going straight to bad. I understand it. However, now we'll put in questionable. It's between these two. We'll go question. The thing is, the only way to change Open Sesame because it's a special is to change its provisions. And at 5 provisions, you can make it off of Shady Vendor. Too much with the Akarantia. So it has to be questionable then. The only thing you can do is change the provisions. But it completely killed the Akarantia crime deck. Kind of. Because now you can play a Cleaver version instead. And do other things instead of Open Sesame. Yeah, I think questionable makes more sense to me. I understand it, but we nerfed. I don't know if we really needed this, because this kind of killed the deck. Because I've tried it a fair bit, and I think Cleaver Crimes with Akarantia support's okay. But it just seems that without the Open Sesame, just Akarantia crime decks, which were, to be fair, the best deck at one point, are just not good enough anymore. And I think the Open Sesame change is largely responsible for that. But since the deck isn't completely unviable, it's just not very good anymore, I think we'll leave it in questionable. That one's rough for me. It's hard to say, because It's not like a unit where you could have nerfed the power or something. Instead, you have to change the provisions, and it was the best deck. So I'm not... Yeah, we'll leave this here. You could even argue me into neutral, saying if you think the deck was too oppressive. But next up, we have a Patricidal Fury. This is for the raids nerfed. I'm neutral. I can see why people wanted this nerfed. I can see how it's really good with stuff like Sov. And I'm just neutral on it. I don't have much to say about it. Next up, we have Philippa. I think we'll go... She got buffed. I think we'll go good. We won't go top tier. She didn't become viable. You don't see her anymore. This is supposed to be Philippa Blind Fury, by the way. This is the wrong Philippa picture. Sorry about that. I must have dragged the wrong one in. She got buffed. She lost the provision. So it was a buff. It just doesn't seem to matter really that much. I'm really sorry I put the wrong picture in here. But yeah, it's Philippa for the Northern Realms one. The Blind Fury. I just searched Philippa in my card images and dragged the wrong one in because I was going through real quick. But yeah, this is Blind Fury. Just pretend like it's Blind Fury. And yeah, she lost the provision. Like I said, she got buffed. It's good. I think she wasn't played outside of Temple of Melitele. She's still not played outside of Temple of Melitele, but she does do 10 damage. But yeah, interesting. Yes, I think that was a good one. Next up, we have the power nerf to Felipe. Yeah, that was probably good. Felipe was incredible. I don't know. If you guys have watched my videos, you'll know at some point that there's this thing where if they play Felipe and you can't kill it, you lose the game. It's just a thing that happens against status and had happened against status. And it's because of Felipe. If you can't kill it, you lose the game most of the time. Making it 5 makes it easier to kill. To be fair, though, a lot of engines are at 6 power to make them outside bronze removal. But most of them aren't as strong necessarily as Felipe, although Idarin kind of is and some other ones. Maybe he should have been more expensive. In my opinion, though, Status Nilfgaard. Status Nilfgaard was a deck that was extremely annoying to play against. But, it was the 4th best Nilfgaard deck. So that's why it's not in top tier to me, because the deck's... it was annoying to play against, but it wasn't, the best deck or anything. Next up, we are going to go in with Phoenix Gang of Power. I want to put it in top tier, but honestly hasn't been that impactful. So I think we'll go good. The top tier ones I kind of want to leave for impactful changes, right? Things that I think helped a lot. Maybe Crow Mother doesn't deserve to be there either, but I've seen a good amount of Crow Mother. You need Darren the Crow Mother now. I've seen that quite a bit. So I think we'll put the Phoenix thing good. Although it's one of my favorite changes, I don't think it's necessarily a top tier change for making it viable. But again, to power, at 5 power, 5 points to carry over each round. It's a cool card. It's a fun card. It's a good interaction. And it also moves it, very importantly, outside of range of Northern Wind, which is always annoying when your carryover card or important card is a 4, and they banish it. So yeah, I like that one. Good. Next up, we have Portal getting its nice buff. It went down to 11 provisions. And yeah, I like it. Portal, compared to stuff like Battle Stations, Portal just didn't add up, and now it was a good change. I think what would help Portal even more is a couple buffs to the underutilized 4 provision cards, like Bear Witcher. So you can get out 2 Bear Witchers at 8s maybe, but that was a good change. I've seen a couple Portals. It's a pretty fun card. Next up, we have a provision on Pulling the Strings. This is going straight to top tier. Pulling the Strings at 6 was completely unviable garbage that no one ever played, unless you're trying to meme on someone, like someone did to me that one time in a video, which was hilarious. But yeah, I mean, at 5 provisions, Pulling the Strings, what is Pulling the Strings used in? Mostly Collusion. Collusion's never really been that great. But with Pulling the Strings at 5, it's amazing. You can make it off a Shady Vendor, which helps Shady Vendor after losing the Open Sesame. It helps out Pirate's Cove, which no one really played, because now you want to spawn the extra gang off of it. And Collusion wasn't a good deck, like I said, but this change almost single-handedly made Collusion so much better. It's such a fun deck. It's such a fun card to set up. and the opponent can play around it because they know how many gangs you have. They know what you're in range of seizing, so I can't just pull it out of nowhere and steal your guy unless you get it off a shady vendor. But they should know that you can get off a shady vendor. That's an option. They know what you're going to steal. And since vendor doesn't have the blind eye tag, you can't just add a random gang off a vendor, then seize. You have to use a leader, and they know you can get a tide hook off of it. I love this change. It does so much. You can even play it in like non-collusion decks if you want to, but collusion's really where it shines. Fantastic change. And one I didn't even think of, to be honest. Next up, we have the Reaver Hunters. Bad. This is the worst change of the entire patch, without a doubt to me. The fact the card cannot use its order and cannot be played is stupid. It should be allowed to be played. The deck wasn't good. Like, Reaver Hunt, it's one of those cases where it's annoying to play against. Some decks can't kill it. Most of the time, the deck is really bad and it loses. I don't know. This was a stupid change. The card should be allowed to use its order and be played. That's what I got to say on that one. Reaver Scout going from 5 to 6, or from 6 to 5, I mean. That's bad. There's a reason Reaver Scout was 6, and I think after playing this patch, we can all remember why. And it's because Mutagenerator with Reaver Scout is ridiculously good. And the fact that it goes in with Golden Necker, and you have a tempo option to help out with the Mutagenerator carryover. The fact that this got buffed almost entirely mitigated the nerf to Mutagenerator because it didn't matter. You had spare provisions as much as you wanted, basically, because you're playing Golden Necker with a bunch of 5 Persian cards to carry over. And even if you're not, it's at 5, just enables everything you want to do with Mutagenerator. And it's just everywhere. It's everywhere. There's a reason Northern Realms, in like the top 100 or whatever, top end of the ladder, is the best faction and most played faction. It almost entirely comes down to this card and Mutagenerator. And this card getting buffed was pretty much what ushered that in. So, yeah. I don't think that was good. Next up, we have Roach from 10 to 9. This is interesting. I kind of like it. I like having another thinning choice. It's at the bottom end of good for me, by the way. Like, we're just going to say this one's at the bottom end of good. It's cool. I like Roach. Roach is fun. Thinning is good. Consistency is good. It enables Golden Necker more, but I don't hate Golden Necker as a card. I just think there's some things it exploits too hard, and those things it exploits are the problems rather than Golden Necker. And Roach doesn't really do any of that. Like, thins your deck, sure. I like Roach. Sure, it helps Renfri and stuff, and Renfri is my most hated card of all time, but you know what? I am perfectly fine with saying, even if I hate it, it's a balanced card. There's nothing wrong with Renfri at the moment, so helping her out is fine. Like, I don't mind. At least like increasing consistency in general. Then we have Ruin. Ooh, does this make top tier? Top tier has to have an impact, so I guess not. But it's at the high end of good. Ruin gaining a power, went from 3 to 4. Really nice change. Super helpful if you want to play a Ruin deck. Probably deserves another power buff, and if it did, it'd probably go to top tier, because you'd probably be able to make it for the deck with it. As it is, the +1 power, I haven't seen it very much, but I have seen it, and it seemed pretty decent, so I like Ruin. I think this is a good change. Kind of curious if we buff him again, how good it'd be. After that, we go into Saskia Commander, going straight to top tier. She got nerfed a while back to 3 power. Now she goes back to 4 power. You see her quite a bit in Scoia'tael. Not as much as you might think because of how many decks are just movement control with like Frenzy Dow and stuff and those other interesting buffs that altogether makes a rather interesting control deck as far as control decks go. But yeah, she getting that 1 power is quite nice. It doesn't get her out of range of the things that were problems for her before, like the fogs off of Tempest, stuff like that. But it does stop her from dying to random 3 damage, and it just seems like she deserved it. Like, she wasn't that strong. Other stuff has eclipsed her in Scoia'tael, so giving her a buff makes sense to me. Next up, we have Siege. We're going straight to neutral on Siege. Top end of neutral. Yeah, we'll go top end of neutral on this. This is the one I'm more leading towards good than the other ones on, but I'm still neutral. Siege is an incredibly good scenario. The fact they went from 14 to 13 provisions blows my mind, except people must have loved Siege. But it hasn't really had that much of an impact because I haven't seen it that much, so we're going to leave it in neutral. But I think this is almost entirely due to Golden Necker, Mutagenerator, and Reaver Scouts completely overshadowing it. Not that it's a bad card. So it's hard to say, which is another reason we're putting it neutral. Next up, Sigvald from 8 to 9 provisions. Yeah, that's probably good. Sigvald is one of the highest ceiling cards in the game, and it was a 7 for 7 on it, and then it went to 8. And now at 9, I think it's fair, but again, I have not seen a single Sigvald this patch because of just Golden Necker and Magic Compass dominating all of Skellige. That being said, I think this was a good one, so I'm more sure this is a good one than the ones we left in neutral. So, yeah, I think this is probably good. Slave Driver. It's between good and top tier. Let's go top tier. Slave Driver probably should be a 6 version card. It should be a 6 version card. The problem with this, and why I'm debating it, is the fact that all of the things you can copy with Slave Driver got nerfed. Like, if just Slave Driver went nerfed, it went from 5 provisions to 6, by the way, in case I didn't say. The fact that if this just went to 6, and the other Nilfgaard cards were left alone, the bronzes, other than the Marine, I would have said this was top tier. Like, probably at the top of the top tier. But the fact that all the cards you can copy, the Alba Armored Cavalries, the Nausicaa Sergeants, the Marines deserved it, but the fact that they all got nerfed makes it seem a little excessive. But I still think this is a top tier change. And I think that this is a fair card at 6. And it might be too impactful. Like, I haven't seen a single Slave Driver since it got nerfed. But I think that's more on the responsibility of the other cards, like Cavalry and Nausicaa getting nerfed, than the Slave Driver. I think Slave Driver should be a 6, and it was really impactful. I think that the other ones should go back, but that's why they're in questionable and bad. And then this would be a top tier change. This is between top tier and good for me, just because of the things that copies getting nerfed, making this worse. But I think it should be up here. I also think it should... I'll just put this here before I say too much about it. I think Reaver Scout and Slave Driver should always be the same provisions because they're very similar cards. Next up, we have Sov. Went from 12 to 11 power. This was a good change. Sov's point slam is ridiculous. Reducing the point slam a little bit is fine. I know people want to nerf the provisions. That probably is also fine. I voted for the power because I didn't have any room on my provisions nerfs left. And that's apparently what went through, reducing his point slam a little bit. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's good. But again, I've only seen one Sov this patch, because everything's Golden Necker, so I can't really say too much about how well it's then affecting the game. Stefan Skellen gaining a provision. Questionable. This one's questionable. Yes, Stefan Skellen is extremely good. Yes, he spawns 4 Ace Up the Sleeves, which do 8 damage and trigger your assimilates. Yes, that's 13 for 11 base value with 8 damage. But it's a deck building requirement. It's supposed to be like that. Like, this is, to me, is the problem. It's supposed to be like that. Stefan Skellen, along with the leader, are your payoffs for building a deck with 12 tactics. So I think it should be like that. But then again, it was really good. And in the top tier Nilfgaard decks. But I don't think it was what made them top tier. Like, Stefan Skellen's been the same forever. I don't really think he needed a nerf. So, yeah. This is also influenced by just how many other Nilfgaard changes there are. But yeah, I think I didn't like the Stefan change that much. But I didn't hate it. I just didn't like it. And after not seeing Stefan for 2 weeks in a row, as far as I can remember, although I did play him to try and test him out and see if he was still okay, it just seems like it's hard to tell because of how many Nilfgaard nerfs there are to isolate the effect of each individual one. But I didn't really think he needed it. And honestly, maybe, I don't know. It's questionable. Svalbard lost power from 10 to 9. This is a good change. Svalbard was too good. Problem is, Golden Necker completely overshadowed this, so we don't even see Svalbard. I actually haven't seen a Svalbard this patch, I don't think. At least not in the past couple weeks. No, I think I saw one. I think I saw one Svalbard. But that's it. It's just completely gone. But then again, I don't know if that's... I think it's just a Magic Compass thing that just made all these Skellige cards away. I said that when I did Magic Compass, that I don't know too much for the Skellige cards because they aren't seen play, because just Magic Compass dominates so much better than they do. So yeah, I don't know too much. I think it was good though. It was a really good card. Next up, we have Temple of Melitele. Provision change, top tier. Went from 12 to 13. It adds so many provisions to your deck. It boosts up your dual cards. It's really good. It was too cheap. I don't know what to say. Top tier change. It affected all the decks it was in. They lost the provision. And yeah, that was a good change. Akarancia lost the power. I'm neutral on this one. I just could care less. Let's stick it in the middle. Akarancia at 5 versus Akarancia at 6. It just doesn't play for even. Like, it's a 5 with 6 profit. It just makes it easier to kill. But it needs Vice 12. I think overall the change to Akarancia is like unnecessary. Like, this just seems like an unnecessary change to me that also didn't affect that much. Right? Because the Open Sesame was the real nerf to Akarancia. But at 6 versus 5, they can kill easier, but they like heat wave it anyway. You candle buff it. So it's not really changing that much. But it lost the power. So I don't think this really mattered that much. If I had to go between good neutral and bad neutral, it's on the little end of bad neutral. But just because it seemed unnecessary, but whatever, I don't care. Eternal Eclipse going to 15 provisions. That's going straight to bad. Why is my question. Why are we nerfing this deck? This deck is terrible. You can't protect the scenario. Why are we making it more expensive? Doesn't make sense to me. Flying Redanian. Oh yeah, there we go. This is going to be my top of the top tier changes. Now, I'll get in front of battle preparations. This is the best change of the patch, in my opinion. Flying Redanian is such an interesting and dynamic card. That it's so interesting, and it's so dynamic, and it's so helpful to your deck. Like, if you can get to the 9 coins, you get this out of your deck. The reason that's really interesting is because then you can't spend the coins that turn, and you can't proc your effects, so you fall behind a tempo but get the Redanian. But then you have the combo potential follow up with your coin spenders. And you can also leave it in your deck if you don't think you can get those coins round 1 and just apply for tempo. It's a really cool card. It's a really thematic card. I love it how it comes back as a ghost ship. It looks awesome. And it went from the 1, it gained up power, in case you didn't know, 3 to 4 power. That 1 power change made it from completely unplayable, like it wasn't played at all, to a really good option without being overpowered. And that's exactly how I think these balance changes should go. I love this change. I've tried it out. It feels good without being too good. Really strong change. Really awesome. Love this one. This is the best change for me. Next up, Heist. It gained a provision. I'm neutral on Heist. Again, the Waylay deck wasn't that strong with the Heist, but Heist, you could argue to me that Heist is too good for what this stuff does. You could also argue to me that Heist isn't that strong because of the lack of tempo on it. But I guess I don't really care too much. I think the deck got hurt overall a little bit too much, but of the nerfs, the Heist one made the most sense. So I guess we'll go with that. Where's Angus? He's in here, right? Oh, he's lower. Yeah, this should be the highest of the nerfs to that deck. Next up, we've got Thirsty Dame to 6. I wasn't sold on this when it happened, but we'll go good. I think that the fact that the deck's kind of gone and dead, like, I think Thirsty Dame deserves to be a 6 version card, but the deck got nerfed into Oblivion. So it's still playable, though. I've seen a couple, like a 2 is in a couple, but, and I think maybe 3, but I don't know. She probably deserves to be a 6 version card. The deck got hit a little too hard, in my opinion. Does that mean the nerf to her was bad? No. So we're going to put this here, I think. Yeah, this makes sense to me. Torres losing a power. Top tier change. Really good. It makes a lot of sense. His point slam was too high. The fact that I voted for this is not why I put this here. But his point slam round 1 was too high. Just reducing that a little bit makes a lot of sense. His evolved form stays the same. I liked it. Trey Heron. Alright, let's be honest here. It's a neutral change. I hate Trey Heron as the rest of you guys. But at 5 for 8, its tempo was so low that I don't care. But it also got nerfed to 4, so I just don't care. It's an annoying card, but is it really worth the RNG? Yeah, it is. Okay, we're moving up. It's going to good. Don't like Trey Heron. The ceiling on the high roll is what makes it go up here. The other top tier change is going to be the Unseen Elder, going to 7 power. Oh, Trey Heron lost the power, by the way, in case I didn't say it. Unseen Elder, really cool change. I like the +1 power. He's supposed to be like one of the most powerful beings on the continent, right? So it makes sense that he's big and has his ability. And Devotion vampires really need help, and this kind of helps them a little bit. And yeah, it can't remove my 6 damage removal anymore. Quite like it. Also, for Witch's Sabbath, makes it easier to revive, so it helps that too. So yeah, I like this one. Uprising gained a provision. That was a good change. Don't see it, which is why it's not higher up. Still don't see Uprising ever, but it deserved a buff, so got one. Vanadane lost the power. It's going to go right next to Angus. Same deck, same reason. Exactly the same thing. It went from 7 to 6. Easy to remove. Makes the deck worse because you can't replay him. Don't think the deck really needed it. Questionable change to me, but whatever. Verena is a top tier change. She went from 10 to 9 provisions, which at the time a lot of people probably thought was for Golden Necker. I thought I just needed to be 1 less provision to be competitive with the other 9 provision slots you have in Vampires. And she at 9 provisions is exactly where I think a card should be. Like she has a niche. She has decent value outside her niche. But when she's in her niche, she really just dominates. And she's 6 power, so she's harder to remove. And you can play around her. You just don't boost the cards that she puts her ability on. If your card boosts itself, having her negate it similar to a lock. But you can always remove the bleeding with the Purify. You can Vitality the bleeding away. She sees play in a bunch of different vampire decks without being the number 1 choice. Really pretty much exactly where I would like to see a card. So, yeah, that's a top tier change. Next up, we have Vesemir to 7. Good. Witcher Trio probably deserves... Go above that. The Witcher Trio probably deserves to all be at 4s-ish. And getting Vesemir to 4 is a good start. And I like the Witcher Trio. Like I said, I like consistency, and I like having consistency options. I think it's cool to have choices for which consistency cards you run. And getting the Witcher Trio back is one way to do that, and I like it. Vilgefortz to 10. I'm neutral. No, it's questionable. It's questionable to me. Let's be honest. It's questionable. Yeah, I'm leaning. I put it in neutral, then I had an instinctual twinge of feeling bad about it, so I moved it down. This is just my opinions. And obviously you can agree and disagree. I could be right, I could be wrong. It doesn't matter. It's just for fun. Yeah, so makes it so you can't play him in Golden Necker, which isn't that important. But it also means you lose a provision in pretty much every Nilfgaard deck that was running him. I can understand why we nerfed him. I can understand it. But to me, he's not as good as the other control cards, like Geralt and Leo and stuff. He feels a lot more like Invocation to me, where you're not getting a body. Because in his case, you are just usually destroying something. You're also pulling something out of their deck. And since it can't be a gold anymore, I don't think he deserved the nerf, but I don't hate it. It's like questionable. Yeah, this is a good tier for it. And last up, we have Vi. We're going to have to do this. I don't want to do it, but I think we have to do it. No, I think we have to. I think we have to. Vi was a top tier change. I hate this card. It's one of my least favorite cards in the entire game. But it was bad. It didn't see play. 1 power gained for it means that the deck has a higher ceiling by like 12 points. The deck became viable as a result of this. So I think we can't not put it in top tier. I think it has to be in top tier. As much as I hate the card, I think the change was good. I like, and it's good to see the card viable. It's a deck that's punished by things that are tunnel removal and resets. It has counterplay, but the ceiling was just too low before they buffed it. And after the buff, now it seems like a decent, good deck. And that's what we want from a change. So, yeah, I think this was a top tier change, as much as I don't like the card. Yeah. So I think we're good. This is the tier list. Let me know what you guys think. Yeah, let me know what you think. Do you agree with my things? Disagree? I played like 300 games this season, so this is just what I thought. And I played most of them after the patch. to try out all the changes. But let me know what you guys think. Am I wrong on any of these? Am I right? Do you disagree or agree? It's opinion based. Like, we can have different opinions and still both be right. I don't know. Just let me know what you guys think. This was just a suggestion I thought would be pretty fun. Might do it for the next one too after the patch, just to like do a fun little thing at the end and see what we think of the changes. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you think we should do another one for the future ones. And I'll put the link to this template in the description. And if you guys want to make your own tier lists and share them, feel free to do so. I'll see if I can get the links back working in the comments. You guys can do that. But yeah, feel free to make your own tier lists and share them. It'll be fun. Well, guys, hopefully you enjoyed. It's a bit different, and we'll see you in the next one. That'll be it for this one, guys. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you next time. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more. And you can check out some more videos over here. And thanks for watching.